Welcome to this video on creating appraisals in Totara Perform. Appraisals are often annual or biannual opportunities to take a deeper look at an individual's performance over time. Supported by performance data collected over the period of the appraisal, is a chance for the individual, their manager, and perhaps other appraisers to review their progress and set goals for the coming year. In Totara Perform, appraisals are added as performance activities, so I'll start by selecting Activity Management from the Quick Access menu. I want to create a new appraisal, so I'll add activity. I'll give my activity a title and an optional description, which is just for administrators. I'll indicate that this is an appraisal activity, then create my appraisal. I'm taken straight to the Content tab, but I'll check the settings on the General tab first. The information I've already entered is shown here and can be edited until I activate the activity, when the type can no longer be changed. Now I need to think about who will respond to the activity and how their responses will appear to other users. In the case of my appraisal, the user, their manager, and an HR appraiser will be asked to complete the appraisal form separately in advance of the appraisal meeting. I want everyone to be able to view others' responses, so responses won't be anonymous. I can also decide when individuals can see other users' responses. Here I've got three options. If I leave the visibility condition set to none, all responses are visible to other users as soon as they are submitted. Alternatively, I could choose to wait until everyone has completed the form by choosing Response Submission is closed for all participants. In my case, I don't want users to see others' responses until they have completed the form themselves, so that they aren't influenced by the answers given. So, I'll select Response Submission is closed for the participant who is viewing. I'll save my changes. This warning relates to the visibility condition setting. It reminds me that I need to enable automatic closure on the Content tab, so I'll go there next. I have two options for automatic closure. If I select automatic closure on completion, when a user submits their appraisal, the section or instance will be marked as closed. If you want the activity to end at the due date, regardless of whether participants have completed it, you can also choose automatic closure on due date, where all instances of this activity will be automatically closed once the due date is reached. To use this option, you also need to set a due date on the Instance Creation tab. This feature is useful when used in conjunction with the triggers for repeating activities. For example, if you want to base the creation of a new instance on closure of a previous instance, setting automatic closure based on the due date ensures these dates don't drift out. For my appraisal, I'll say that I want automatic closure on completion. Next, I need to decide who will participate in the activity. I'll select the subject, their manager, and appraiser. I'll also add the manager's manager as a view-only participant. I can now decide which of these users can see others' responses. So, for example, I could say that only the appraiser can see all responses. But in my case, I want all involved parties to view responses. Remember, they'll only need to be able to do so once they've submitted their own answers because of the visibility condition I set on the previous tab. I want the appraisal to include a review of the past 6 months and a discussion of goals and projects for the coming months. So, I'll enable multiple sections to allow me to separate my questions. You can see that some of the decisions I've made have been applied to the first section generated. This is because I can make different decisions for different sections. This allows you to have different users complete or view different sections if you wish. Now it's time to add content to my first section. As there are a range of options available, this is covered in a separate video. So, let's imagine I've now done that. My next step is to decide which users in the system this appraisal should be assigned to. You can assign performance activities based on a user's audience, organisation, or position, or to individual users by name. I'll say that all users in the manager's audience should be assigned this appraisal. I'll also assign it to an individual. If you add someone by mistake or want to remove them, you can do that here using the X icon. If I wanted my appraisal to be completed by a peer, mentor, reviewer, or external respondent, I would also need to decide who will choose the individuals to fill those roles. I don't need to do this for roles the system already knows about, such as the manager relationship. By default, the subject of the appraisal will be asked to identify these people, but you can change this here if you wish. Now I need to decide when the activity should be created for the assigned users. There are a range of options here. You can leave the creation open-ended, so anyone in this audience will have an instance created for them from the start date, or set a limited time period for instance creation. I want the flexibility for mid-year appraisals to happen at different times for different users, depending on when they join the company, so I'll leave this as open-ended. For the same reason, I'll set the date type as relative so that users can have a schedule of appraisals that works for them. I'll say that the mid-year appraisal should be created based on the date the user was created, and say that this should occur 20 weeks later. I want the mid-year appraisal to happen each year around this time, so I'll set the frequency to repeating, and say that a new instance should be created around 11 months after the previous one was closed. Remember that using automatic closure on due date will ensure that the appraisal occurs around this time each year, regardless of whether the previous instance was completed by participants. I'm happy for this pattern to repeat indefinitely. Finally, I'll add a due date for the activity and say it must be completed within 6 weeks of creation. Remember that once the due date is set, you can also ask the system to automatically close all instances when the date is reached, regardless of whether the appraisal has been completed by assigned participants or not. At the bottom here, I can decide whether to create one instance per user, regardless of how many job assignments they have in the system, or whether to enable job assignment-based instances and generate an instance for each job assignment a user has. I'll leave this as disabled. Now I'm ready to save my changes. This warning lets me know that no individual instances of this activity will be created for the users in my audience because the activity is still in draft. Finally, you decide which notifications are sent and to whom. Notifications for performance activities can be set at site level via the Quick Access menu or for individual activities. To find out about setting notifications at site level, we recommend taking our separate notifications course. If you have set notifications at site level, you can override them at the individual activity level by editing, disabling, or creating your own new notification just for this appraisal. One way to use notifications is to let a user know that someone else in the activity has completed their instance. For example, you may want to let the manager know when the subject has completed their instance so that they can go in to review it. For this, you would use the trigger participant instance completion by subject. I want to create a new notification. I'll give my notification a name and say I want to send it to the manager, then enter the content of my notification. Notice that I'm using placeholders to personalize the message, ensuring that the manager knows who the appraisal is for and has an easy link to their version of the activity. I'm happy with my notification, so I'll enable it and then save. The final step to create instances for your users is to activate your activity. Instances for the selected individual and all users in the audience have now been assigned. Those users can now begin to complete their appraisals through Totara Perform.